It's jarring. Okay. Um, Thank you for coming. I'm really excited to teach this. And it's so funny because I haven't taught it in a while, and and I love teaching it. So it's really an interesting experience to have folks come together and learn how to do this. And I love it. So I'm really excited for everyone to be doing this. Um, I am going to start just by talking a little bit about what it is that we're doing. So you have some sense because you're here of what it is that we're going to be doing. And I do talk about it in some ways that I think I found comfortable for myself. All and how when I started reading about it and exploring about it in ways that I felt made sense to me. And other folks teach different ways. So I do encourage you to explore other folks who do teach this, other publications and books and recordings and things like that, because we do all teach a little bit different. And for me, this is just a natural part of life. And so, that being said, I do have some things around ritual, I would say, when I first start setting my intention to begin a journey. And I do encourage folks to have some sort of ceremony, but it doesn't have to be a big deal. um, and what that means is some people call to the direction. Some people do a short, breathing exercise, and they just may honor their spirits. For me, I have a small altar set up. I usually have something placed in different directions. I have little tchotchkes down, or whatever you want to call them, that represent different spirit guides or power animals that I work with. And I definitely light a candle. I burn rosemary because I don't really like the smell of sage. Um, but and then it's my own rosemary, so I harvest that, and that becomes a part of it. I do put some spirits out. Today they're drinking vodka for some of my ancestral spirits. And so I encourage you to think about what you would do as sort of an opening ceremony every time you journey. And now there's a spiritual aspect to that. There's this really poignant thing that you're doing, this lovely honoring thing for the spirits that are going to come and that you're going to finally connect with. And however, it's also very practical. So it's a lot like warming up before you go for a run, and your body starts to prepare for what's going to be happening. And so it's a really great way to actually begin. It is part of the whole process. And also it is very special. And so creating some ceremony around that makes a lot of sense. And I have to tell you, no one's more surprised than me that I do have an altar and that I do all of these things and that I do call into the directions because, frankly, that was not me over 20 years ago. That's really what I was into. Um, so I do encourage you to do it, even if it's just for those practical reasons. But I do think that the more meaning and the more personalized you can be about it, the better. So this morning I did come in, I did all of those things, and I actually journeyed before we came here to ask for some guidance. And I do want to share what happened. So I'm not really much of a performer. So being front and center and recorded is not my comfort zone. So I had a little bit of stress about it. And so I journeyed and I thought, okay, who's going to come and support today? And this giant polar bear came and plopped his big body all on mine as I was laying there. And I thought, okay. And then he was sort of snuffling around and he was just really fun. It was really fun. And he told me to sort of lighten up and have a good time with all of you. So that's the goal today. And when I feel like I'm getting a little bit stressed, I'm going to think about polar bear just like splooting on my body, just plopped. So that's an interesting image that we're going to take into these journeys today. So I'm really excited about that. So when we talk about shamanic journeying, really what we're talking about is getting into a state. And there's been a lot of studies about the state that we're getting in. And it's changing our brainwaves over to theta state. And one way that shamanic folks do that is through rhythmic sound. The rhythmic sound is there to train your brain to get into that state. And there's been a lot of studies that at a 13-minute mark, if you're relaxed, whether you have a meditation practice or not, your brain, if the cadence is right, it's 4 to 5 beats per second, your brain will switch to theta. And your brain already switches to theta. It goes back and forth when you're sleeping. And so your brain already knows how to do it. What we're doing is training it to do it when you want to do it deliberately, and then to stay there so that you can have these experiences. So we are going to use rhythmic sound. Now, eventually, if you do it enough, you don't really need the rhythmic sound. I've had experiences where I've felt stressed getting tests at the hospital because it's obviously a very stressful thing, and they've been measuring my brain waves. And it was kind of exciting because I thought the only way I know how to calm myself down is to get into a journey while they're doing these tests on me. And I had lights flashing right in front of my face and all these crazy things going on to try and measure what was going on with my brain. And when the results came, you could see my brain in theta because I journeyed. And I had to kind of confess that to the neurologist because I didn't know if I messed up the test. He assured me I didn't. But these are things that can be there for you at any time if you do it enough, regardless of whether or not you have the rhythmic sound. And so we are going to use that. And I do encourage folks at the beginning, there's so much out there, and shamanic people use all different kinds of things. They use all different kinds of sound. Rattles are just as effective as drumming, but there's also folks who use all different kinds of things out there to make noise and to get their brains into these states. So I do encourage you to go out and branch out and experiment. But in the beginning, find the drumming. I do recommend drumming at just a simple, clean sound to train your brain. And then once you're in the groove and you feel like you can really get in there, then you can start experimenting. And but in the beginning, I think personally, and I have found working with different clients and teaching, that just a nice, simple, clean sound, in this case, drumming, and sticking with that for a while until you really get into the groove is the way to go, or it certainly makes things a little bit easier. We are going to do our first journey, and we're not going to put a lot of pressure on ourselves about it. Really, our first journey that we do is going to be about getting in there. What I mean by that is shamanic practice often talks about the 3, what we call non-ordinary reality, 3 places that we can access: the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. And to be honest, it's really much more vast than those 3 places. But folks often think about, well, there's different levels to the lower world, and then there's different layers, and that it just keeps going, kind of like a big onion. And that's certainly the case. And later, you might not think about those directions, and you might just arrive at this place. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to start out journeying to what's called the lower world. And our intent with this first journey is to just get there. Don't worry about meeting guides. Don't worry about having an intention when you get in there. Our intention is to just get into this place that we're going to start journeying to eventually find our guide. And how we do that is we will put on this drum and we'll take some deep breaths and we'll try and relax and focus on the drum. And then a nice, easy way is to think about a place that's real here in what we call the middle world, and then find an opening. So a good thing to do, what a lot of people do, is find a tree and then go to the base of the tree and travel down the roots, or find a hole in the ground in your backyard. I happen to have a meditation labyrinth in my yard, and there's a dragonfly stepping stone in the center. And folks who have seen this often tell me, I went out into your yard and there was a little handle on that, and I opened it up, and there were stairs. So I walked down into the stairs. So I know several people who use that as their entry point, which is delightful. And what you're going to do is you're going to start traveling downward. And now this is not Christian lore, so we're not traveling down into a fiery pit of a place. Although, maybe there's lava or whatever, your space could look the way it looks. However, usually the lower world is this lush green place. But you'll travel down, 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 and there usually will be sort of a threshold, whether you come out into an opening, if you're in a tunnel or a cave, and then it'll open up into this space. And what I want you to focus on is really paying attention to everything that's happening in there when you do this. You're going to pay attention to, and this will sound strange, do I smell anything? Do I feel anything? Do I feel something on my skin? Is it cold? Is it warm? Do I feel uncomfortable? Do I feel joyful? When I'm looking around, is it grassy? Is it more like a jungle? Is it a desert landscape? Really pay attention to every aspect of it and everything that you're feeling. Really go slow and just pay attention. And all information is coming in from all your senses. And that's going to be our only intent when we go there. Now, I've said this. However, some folks, if you get in there and you feel drawn to travel upwards, so perhaps you travel to a tree and you feel, instead of going downward, that you feel drawn to be going upward. I'm going to tell you to follow that instinct and travel upward. And then I'm excited to hear about it. And again, a lot with traveling to the lower world. We're going to move up and there will be some kind of threshold. Some folks talk about there was some fog and then suddenly there wasn't. But this is also a rich place. So it doesn't, when we think of traveling upward, we're just like, oh, we're up in the sky or we're up in the cosmos or we're up in the, but try not to have too many expectations and let it unfold. And let, again, same thing that's traveling downward. Now you may see your guide, you may get in there and, our ultimate intent on our second journey is going to be to find our guide. But this journey, I just want you to relax. It's going to be the first journey of the day. And we want to take some deep breaths and get comfortable and figure out how this is going to work for us, because it's going to be different for everyone. And a couple things about the mechanics of that. It's great if you have a headset and you can block out external noise. So often, if you don't have a meditation practice now, sometimes the outside noise or distractions are very big. At first, they feel very distracting. It's okay. Sometimes hard, to clear mind chatter. Just bring your focus back when you find yourself doing that. Just bring your consciousness back to that drum again and take some deep breaths and just say, we're journeying to yourself. That's our intent. We're here journeying, and we're journeying to the lower world, or we're journeying to the upper world. But I do want you to focus, try and hit the lower world. But like I said, if you get in there and you really have to travel up, that's what I want you to do. So the good way of saying everyone's practice is going to be a little bit different. And that's an exciting thing. Okay, the other thing is, I mentioned it is earlier when we were talking about setting up for this class, that have our journals, because we want to honor the information we get by writing it down. But also because we may need to ponder what we see, and we may need to go back in and ask more questions about some of the information that we get as we go. It's not always 100% clear right at the beginning. For me, even, 23 years later, it's sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know what that meant. I'm gonna have to go back in, or I'm gonna have to think about it. But one of the other things that can help is to cover your eyes and to create darkness. And so it is so strange how huge of a difference it can make to just create sort of a blackout scenario and not have any light come in. It is completely changes things. So I do encourage you, even if you just throw a jacket over your face or a blanket, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but blocking out light is huge, hugely helpful. So I do encourage you to do that. Okay. Um, how's everyone feeling? Are we feeling okay about moving forward with the first journey? Okay. I am gonna I'm not gonna do a full ceremony for when we open, and the reason is because I want you to create your own. But we are gonna take a minute before I start the drum, and we're gonna take some deep breaths, and we're gonna kind of take a second to make sure that we are fully present. And one of the ways that we do that and this is a lot like how I open for the journey group that I run once a month, um, is we just take some deep breaths and we kind of go inward and we focus on where we're feeling some tension in our bodies and we work on releasing that. And one thing about the drum is you'll start to hear the drum after we do the opening, I'll start the drum up. And you'll know you're going to travel in, take a note of all the experiences that you are having in there. And you'll hear the cadence of the drum change. So the drum will kind of stop and then it'll kind of slow down. And that'll tell you to come back. And when you hear that, you just retrace your steps and come back out. If you're in there and you feel some discomfort and you don't want to be in there anymore, just open your eyes and come out. And at the end of it, we'll talk about what happened. And I will say that you are really in control in there. Okay. So you go where you want to go. You interact or don't interact with things that you do or don't interact with. Now, when you go in there, one thing I do want to say is this is a new landscape. And so just go in and visit. And what I mean by that is this isn't the time to take anything into your body. So when you go in there, I want you to use the same kind of judgment in there that you would use out here, the same kind of common sense. So when you walk through, if you walked somewhere and you saw a cookie laying on the ground, you wouldn't pick it up and eat it. So don't do that in there. Okay. Um, and don't do anything that feels uncomfortable, that you don't want to do. You don't have to. But also, I do want you to think about it a landscape where you have to use the same kind of good judgment that you do out here. So on this first journey, especially, don't take anything into your body. Don't eat anything. Just go in, observe, and just focus on this place that you're going to be journeying back to a few times today and really get to know it. And this is your first jumping off point. Okay. So we're going to take a few deep breaths, and everyone, I want you to get comfortable. And then we're going to do a little bit of deep breathing, and I'm going to do a little bit of thanking of spirits for being with us here today. And my polar bear in particular, I have some incredible gratefulness for. And then you'll hear the drum, and we're going to find our point to travel down to the lower world. And we're just going to find our spot. Okay. So take a few deep breaths. We're going to breathe in. And when we breathe in, we take a big deep breath and hold it for a beat. And we're going to think about where it is that we feel tension or where we might be holding some stress in our body. So take a deep breath and hold it and let it out. And you want to continue to do that. And when you tap into those places in your body that you're feeling tension, when you breathe in, I want you to think about breathing air into those places. And then when you release the breath, you'll think about also releasing the tension. So take a deep breath and release. And again, and release. And one more time. And release. I want to thank our spirits today for being here with us during this exciting time of learning to journey. And we thank you for your wisdom, and we thank you for your protection, and we thank you for your support and your help with us interpreting what it is that's being shown to us today on this first step. Okay. I want to give folks a couple of minutes to just write down their experiences. I'll be quiet a little bit for that. Um, I'm going to do something a little bit different since we're online. One of the things about taking a class that's really great is we hear the experiences that other folks are having. And that can be a really great thing. We learn from each other. Every time I teach, I learn something new. So that's really exciting. However, some folks don't always want to share, and that's okay. I hope as many of you will share as possible, but I do also know that sometimes some very personal things come up in journeys, and so you're not required to do that. It'll just mean I'll tell more stories. um, but I am gonna call on each of you for this first round so that we can kind of introduce ourselves to each other. Um, and I'm going to tell you that when I used to take classes with folks, I hated this part. So, and not because I didn't feel like I thought everyone in the room was nice, but just because I'm really introverted. And so I always got a little nervous doing it. But I think for learning online, that's a good thing to do. You can turn your camera on or not, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'll just call on you and you can introduce yourself. And then it would be great if you shared what your experience was. And if you struggled, and I want to hear about that too, we can talk through that. Um, when I teach this, and my husband's taken many of my classes, and he always struggles, and it's really, it's really a test for me to have the one person who I'm closest to in life struggle as much as he does. And it's always great to hear about that because it helps us all to know, um, oh, okay, that's okay the way things are happening for everyone. It'll be a little different. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call on folks. I'm going to end up doing it alphabetically because that's how you're listed on my screen. um, and so I hope I'm not um, rushing anyone. But so Allison, um, I'm going to call on you first because you're the A person. Oh, Allison, I know you're unmuted, but I don't think we can hear you. It wouldn't be a Zoom call without this, right? It wouldn't be a Zoom call without some kind of technical complication. Oh, Okay, so Allison, I'm going to circle back to you. I know that's okay. It's okay, but I really do want to hear from you. Um, so let's go to Anne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne, and I'm here in Mexico. And whenever I journey, I dive into the sea. And so that's where I was. And in that, I think one of the most amazing things was the first thing that I saw was a cell, like the building block of the universe, cell. And I saw them all over as if creation was happening. And I guess the other thing I'll share is that I experienced some amazing images, and much of what you would think about seeing anywhere, like the Aurora Borealis was there, the mountains were there, many tails of fish moving through the water. I did experience a couple of images of human expression, and one was in service to another. Um, and I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Anne. All right. How about Asa?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Asa. I'm in Portland. I like when you were talking about being the point of ingress, I started thinking about this oak tree that's in I think it's Willamette Park in South Portland. It's near 300 years old. It's an Oregon white oak, and I've been to it a few times. Put my hands on it, just feels like it's got a lot of lineage, and so I was picturing that being my way in, and I find myself like jumping to like just like being in like and so I was wanting to just like slow down and um, focus on the details of the journey inward. I'm not sure how much time we were having, but I found when I was doing that, I was getting distracted by like um, the process. So I was just trying to like stay with it and um, stay slow on like the journeying inward. I was picturing like um, a, a crack in the trunk that I was like climbing down into and like working my way down in through the roots. Um, so yeah, so I was picturing, what I was feeling.
Great. Thank you. Betsy.
Hello. Um, I am Betsy. I'm in Costa Rica. I struggle with visualizations, and I kind of forgot that was going to come up for me. I don't know how. So yeah, I get a little anxiety because I feel like I'm not good at visualizing. But I went into the tree and I went down like this slide, and then there was like a door and I didn't go in it, and I stayed there. So that's what happened.
Well, I'm going to talk about that for 1 second, about, feeling like you're not good at visualization. And this is why it's so good to share. So this stuff works the way it's going to work. And I know people often think, oh, it's supposed to be this sort of linear story where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I did this, then this happened, then this happened. But for a lot of folks, and I will say for me, it's sort of all over the dial. It works different ways. It doesn't work one way all the time. But some people just get impressions when they get down there, or they'll see symbols, or they'll feel something. And so this is why we say pay attention to everything. So it doesn't have to be visual. And I know that's, these are some concepts that sometimes we're like, well, how does that work? When we start talking about time from a shamanic perspective, also it starts to get pretty confusing. What do you mean time's happening all at once, or time is happening, but it's not in the way that we think, in a linear way? So, you have to just keep journeying in order to let go of the stress and feeling like you're doing it wrong, or you're not good at, like you said, not good at visualization. That's okay. You just let it be what it is. And if you journey and all you get are flashes of, thoughts that just suddenly press into your mind in this sort of urgent way, or these feelings start to well up when you're in there, it's all information. So it doesn't always have to be visual. Yeah.
That's really helpful to hear. Thank you.
Good. And it's not wrong or bad. There are some folks I know who journey and they come out with a list of just words, and there's like, 9 things or 10 things. And sometimes when I run the classes, people say, I don't think I did it right, and I don't think I got in. And I say, well, what happened? And then they go on for 10 minutes and tell me all these things that happened. I go, why do you think nothing happened in there? I don't understand. So, if we think about it, it's all information coming in. So and I'm a little excited that it's going to work that way for you, because we all get to, I hope you'll share, but no pressure. You need to share what you want, and what you feel comfortable sharing. But I will say that's kind of exciting. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, we'll see. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm in Portland, and I also struggle with visuals, so good to know I'm not alone. I'm down in Mount Tabor, Portland. Wasn't very deep, like it was almost like I hopped down, and only part of me was underground, and then I kind of was like trying to, my mind was trying to urge the image along, and that's where I was started losing it a little bit, or feeling like I had some sense of maybe tunnel sliding, and then my mind was like, well, let's go in somewhere else, and then I pictured somewhere else, and then I just try to kind of come back to my body and stay with the relaxation, and it almost felt like dreamlike. Like I don't remember a lot of it, but the one thing that came really clearly was, and I like, yeah, it wasn't very visual, but I think I was in a field, and I heard like chanting, and I almost was like, this isn't the journey, I'm just hearing it. I had to be like, no, that is not what's happening in this. And there was the word was freedom, but there were more words, I don't remember them, and there was kind of like a singing, chanting, like a lot of people chanting. So that was the main thing I heard. And then there was another impression when I came out, was that maybe I high-fived someone.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen, thank you for sharing. That's super exciting. hearing things. So there's, there are some things that we have that are just a part of our own makeup, that some of us are more clear audio, some of us are more visual, some of us are, all different kinds of things. And I'm super excited about the chanting and hearing things. That's really exciting. I'm just, all right, I'm going to geek out for a minute because I'm just really excited at the breadth of experience already. We're not even halfway through the group. But that's really awesome, and I'm excited to see what the rest of your day is going to be like. So that's really just very cool.
Yeah, I've never like heard stuff before. Yeah. So we'll see. I think I'm more what's the one in your butt, like the sensory?
Yeah, audio. Claire audio.
No, like physical sensations.
Oh, what were you feeling when you were in there?
Yeah, my head gets really involved. So I came back to the relaxation and just kind of like I had a couple of like releases, like shaking, which that is really common for me. And yeah, but I was also lying down. So I don't know, it felt much more dreamlike, but I just haven't had clear audience before. So this was interesting.
All right. Thank you. Eric.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Eric, Oregon. Yeah, I struggled to get out of what I felt like was my mind in this one. Like I could definitely see clear images, but like very jumpy. So I went to a tree that's like this redwood that's around the corner from me. Like as soon as I went, try to enter the main bit, like my mind just went to another image, like a different tree. And so I had kind of these exposed tangle of roots. So I sort of wandered around in there and went down a ladder. And yeah, but like I was at the bottom and then back in the middle, like I felt like I was struggling to kind of like keep a continuity, this vision, and like a challenge, and maybe it doesn't really matter. Like was kind of feeling like, yeah, like taking me out of it. But I did emerge into. I sort of tried to find a light, and I was kind of in like a hazy, greenish, swampy forest thing, and I I do remember like the smell of earth really present, and like I sort of sat against this rock, this like cool rock, just sat there for a bit, but then I was like also kind of walking, it's just sort of like flitting between the different things. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay. That sounds good, to be honest. There's going to be some of that. You talk about it jumping around. And just like I said, people aren't doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Those are all normal things to be happening. I just find that really I'm kind of excited, and the rocks and the swampy area and things like that. So you had a lot of different terrains out there. And so that's also some information, again, just things to think about. And this is why we write it down, because when we look back on it, and sometimes when we journey, we'll come out, and if we don't write it down right away, they're gone, you know? And so it's when you write it down, even if it's just a few keywords to remind you of what it is what happened in there. And then you go and reflect on it. And so the jumping around is probably part of the information that's coming in, and you just need to reflect on that and determine what that's about. The great thing about doing this kind of work is that you're the only one who can who can really interpret it. And that's also the challenging part, right? But it's also just really direct information with no one else, trying to tell you what it means. And for me, that's the direct, coming from the direct source in ways that are very personal to me, is the thing that really resonated with me at the beginning, and but every little thing is information. So it's good to write that down and reflect on that. Thank you so much. Okay. Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah of Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I had some similar experiences to Betsy and Eric. It sounds like my immediate thing that came up was like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this right because I can't visualize. And that was definitely there for me at the beginning. And then I was trying to choose a tree, and like I went around to a few different trees trying to find the right tree. And then I was like, okay, whatever, let's choose a tree. It was a tree from when I was a kid in my backyard. And then I got really caught up in the details of like, am I digging or am I apparating, or like how, like, are there roots flying everywhere in dirt, or am I, like, it's like a movie and figure out like how it was going to work, ladder or hole or anything. And so then I remembered you said try going up the tree, so that was easier because I've actually like climbed up a tree before, so that seemed more like my brain could handle that. And so I climbed up a tree, and then I was kind of in a canopy where it felt like I didn't really see up, but I felt like it was in a canopy, and I felt like I wanted to like jump and fly. And so I did that for a while, and then my brain was like, you're not really flying, you're just like imagining this. And so then I just like kind of settled into the rhythm for a while, because I realized I was getting so hung up on what was happening. And then as I was just settling into the rhythm, I started to, my tongue tingle, which happens when I'm like doing Qigong and acupuncture. Okay, so something's happening here. It's like this sensation I always get when things are moving in my body. And then what else did I write down? Then I started seeing some like very short like flashes of images, like faces came out, people that I didn't know. And then the most clear image that I remember was a close up of hands dancing in the light. Really beautiful. It was just really quick, but I was struck by that. And then I also, like Karen, I started to hear singing in the rhythm, and then kind of talked myself out of it. I was not really hearing that, but that was beautiful, hearing the chanting, the singing. And then yeah, the other thing that I noticed was just the drumming felt so good in my body. It felt like it was beating tension out of my body, and I kind of just wanted to listen to it forever. So I was sad when it ended, and I wanted to go back in. So yeah, it was a lot. It's good.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to talk about this real quick before we go to the next person. And our rational brain is going to kick in a lot, and it's okay. It's normal, when we start to do this work, we're sort of walking in another world, but we're also in this one. And our rational mind is very strong, and it's here to keep us safe. And so it's going to do those things. It's going to talk you out of what you're seeing, and it's going to say things like, you're just making this up. All those things, all normal. Everyone who's ever done this journey work has to work through that. And thankfully, it's a great part of your mind that is keeping you safe. And so you can listen to it and say thank you, and then keep moving forward. But it's actually a really great part of yourself. But don't let it get in your way. But it might take some time. It certainly took me time, years, to be honest, for that to finally shut down, and stop saying you're just, you're making this up. And I could talk about that a little bit more if it starts to really come up. But I do think that don't worry about that every really, some of the most talented shamanic practitioners I know had all do that, and occasionally sometimes are like, I think I'm too tired today, or things like that. So a lot of stuff comes up exactly like that. That's a lot, though. You had a lot going on, and I'm glad you followed your instincts to go up. because that may be where you need to travel to find the first guide that we're going to be going to reach today. All right, Julie. Okay, so we're going to move on to Kelly because I'm not sure what's happening with Julie. So, Kelly.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Kelly. I also live in Portland. Yeah, I felt like my rational brain was definitely very present, and that's been something that I've experienced in the past with attempting to like it reminded me like what you were saying about like hypnosis and something I'd done previously when I was in Guatemala. And I really felt like I was trying to find like the right tree. And then like at first I was just trying to picture a tree outside my house. It's really beautiful, cherry tree. And then I found myself like randomly in my grandmother's backyard, like under this apple tree. And I hadn't thought about that in years. And then randomly I was in my child's backyard from like that I haven't thought of in years at this like patch of like a circle of dirt where I used to plant trees, and I would plant like or I would bury like my deceased pets. And I was just like, what? And where did I get here? And then I think my brain was like trying to like rationalize like how I was going to journey down. And then I, was like trying to call into my guides to help me. And I don't really even know who they are. And, from like our conversation and experiences I've had before, then I was like, oh, okay, like my dragon is here. But then yeah, I just kept kind of having these flashes of like rational thought, and I found it really difficult to like see anything. And so then I just started to focus on the drumming and just kind of like try and clear my mind. And I had this like sensation of falling. Like I really just felt like I was like falling. And yeah, I think I started to get into it, and then I would think about it and kind of come out of it. And then right around like when I felt like I was starting to really like sink into all of that is when everything stopped. So I was like, oh darn. I think it just might take me like a long time to really like let all of the thoughts in my head clear and just like allow things to happen. So similar to some of what the others were saying about, random thoughts popping up and yeah, not being able to see things or yeah.
Yes. So what's really interesting is you, even while you were sort of trying to talk yourself out of it or like focus, got caught up in the place, that you were supposed to be, or is this it? Is that it? In the meantime, you were in places that I think are significant. And some things that really struck me were, I hadn't thought about this place in years. What am I doing here? So there's that's a lot of information, and again, these are things where if you write them down and you think about what that might be trying to tell you, in terms of coming through. And just it's good that you're patient with it, and just try and focus back and relaxing. I will say, when I was joking about my husband like struggling to get in, the minute he starts to get it, he goes, oh, this isn't it. And he sort of erases what he's doing. And then he starts over again. He just keeps doing it over and over. And I just look at him like, okay, you'll get in there at some point. You just got to keep going and stop telling yourself you're doing it wrong, or, whatever. Or, the thing that a lot of people say is, I'm just making this up, And, we talk about imagination, when we talk about our imagination, we think of, oh, we're making up stories and things like this. But what I think of as imagination is we're receiving imagery. And so that's kind of how I think of it. And when we let go and we think about it as receiving something rather than something we're driving, it can kind of free you up to let it be what it's going to be. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just really intrigued by the grandmother and the apple tree and where you used to bury your pets and the circle and all this stuff. That's so much stuff. So that's exciting. I think we're at Patricia.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, okay.
Yes.
I am in Boston, Massachusetts. So I initially I was just kind of resistant, like I don't like to go down. I naturally go up. I'm more like I've always thought my spirit guides or my totems are actually birds that fly. So I just hung with that. And I went to, so I couldn't figure out how to go down, but I went to a place where I used to go every summer. My grandfather owned this camp, and we'd have fires and sit around the campfire. And so I went to that place. It was like a lot of leaves and a fire. And one other thing, before I started thinking of the dragonfly, because I bought my son, I'm going to see my son next week in California, and I bought him a little dragonfly to bring out to him, which I thought I was sort of thinking about your dragonfly. So where I ended up is diving into water. The kind of diving, though, like when you're doing a dolphin dive. So not like running into water in a hard dive, but just dolphin dive. And then that feeling of suspension of when you're not, like when you're in the water. My thing was feeling, basically. I ended up feeling. And at that point, when you're suspended between like reality and you're just like in this support of water, but you're not like looking or anything like that. And then I ended up feeling my heart. And I felt heaviness in my heart. And then I felt like that water representation for me was the womb. So I also thought at the beginning of the process, I'm very feeling. I take things in physically like that. At the beginning, I thought, oh shoot, I should have gathered my guides before I did this. And then I ended up finding the drumming too loud. I thought, oh, I got to turn my sound down, and that was it.
Okay. Thank you. I wrote some things down when you were talking. So the one thing that struck me is when you were talking about the dragonfly, because I had talked about a dragonfly in my yard. And so what I will say is that sometimes when there's something in the forefront of your mind, the spirit folks, whatever you want to call them, allies or guides, will use those images sometimes to convey messages because it's right there. us with our rational mind often go, well, I was just talking about dragonflies, so that's why I saw one. Everybody just sort of think about that, that even if you did have something just on your mind, often they'll just use that because it's right there to illustrate a point. So don't let that steer you in a direction of thinking that you're, making something up or whatever. It's still information. They're using that image that is just handy. The other is feeling that your guides are birds. Now, you should absolutely follow your instinct on that. So your guides probably are birds. And what I would say is, the only thing I would say is it doesn't necessarily mean they're up in the sky. There are birds actually in the lower world. There are human-like guides in the lower world. There are animals in the lower world, just like there are in the upper world. And so there's no restriction or limit. I know that's us, we think that birds fly up, so we must have to go up to access birds, but there are birds in the lower world, 100%. But there are also birds in the upper world. So again, follow all your instincts on that, but I just want to make that clear too, because that's our rational mind, again, deciding where they reside. And then the image of water coming up for folks. And I love this because this really does illustrate how only your images have meaning for you. So I will share personally that when I see water and I have to go in it, I go, in my heart, I go, oh shit. Because I'm not a good swimmer. And when I have to go in there, I inevitably see things in there that scare me in journeys. And then I know I'm going to have to open something up in myself and deal with something that I find that's going to cause me some fear or maybe some anxiety or stress. I always do it because that's just who I am. I kind of want to get everything done. I'm very active when I'm in there, but I'm just always like, oh God, I have to go in water. No. But for someone like Anne, it's the most joyful place she can be is in the water. And when you were talking, Patricia, and you talk about being in the womb and things like that, I just am like, the imagery is so different for all of us, which is why, and this is a good thing to bring up now, which is why when we work with power animals, it's better to work with them one-on-one and not use books. Sometimes the books can be great as a starting point, but it's limiting. And it's also your relationship with these beings is very personal, just like my relationship to water in a journey is way different from, say, Anne, who's a great source of joy for her. So ironically, I love to visit the ocean here on Earth. I just don't want to go in it. Okay. Wendy, who's always going to be last because you have a W. Maybe I should work the other way next time. Oh, I still can't hear you for some reason. Hang on, we'll do this one thing and then I'll ask you to unmute and it might prompt you. No. Oh no.
Oh, how about now?
Here you are. No, here you are. We got you.
Yeah, my AirPods aren't working for that. So
Okay.
thank goodness I'm in tech, so I better know how to do this.
Yeah.
My name is Windy, like the wind. I'm an adjective. So this is all new for me. So this is really exciting to hear everybody's story. So thank you for sharing, because I had a little bit of a hard time. Not a hard time, just new. So I saw everything in this like flat plane and then long stairs, and then it flipped. So I had to go up. So, and that's all I did. So I just went up the whole time. So I heard bubbles in the drumming in the audio. So it was very distracting for me. And so I just kept trying to focus back on the drumming. And so that was interesting. But there's just lots of stairs. And then afterwards, that was interesting because it was really like my whole body was tingly and like floating. So I just climbed up the stairs.
All right. That's good. That's enough. You
Yeah.
know, this is why we do it in stages. Just briefly, I'm going to share a couple ways that I've gone down to the lower world because they're really all over the place. I used to go to this place that looked like this open field, and there was a massive tree in the field, and it had like a Dutch door in it. So there was a door, and I would go into this tree, and it was like a little, like Winnie the Pooh's house. It was like this, it had a fireplace, which is like bizarre. Why would you light a fire inside a tree like that? Crazy. And then there was this little area where there were some stairs, and I walked down these spiral stairs, and then I was like, it almost felt like I was in catacombs. So it was like a dirt tunnel, and it had like those construction lights, hanging, and I just would follow the tunnel. And then I would come out into this area that was the lower world, and I was on the edge of a cliff, and then I would have to climb down, and then there were so many large cats, and I have to tell you, this was stunning to me because I really thought of myself as more a dog person. So to get down there and just see cats everywhere, I mean, it was like sci-fi, so many big cats. And I thought, okay, this is strange, but then also, because I'm very urban, and Patricia in Massachusetts, that's where I'm from originally. And I grew up very urban. We did not camp. We didn't do those things. And I spent most of my life in cities. And this is before Harry Potter came out. And I would literally walk down Massachusetts Avenue, which is between Arlington, Massachusetts and Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is one of the busiest roads going. And all of a sudden I would turn and walk through the wall of a building. And when I got through which was strange, and then I got through the building, and it looked like there had been some kind of earthquake. So there was all kinds of like rubble of buildings and concrete and things. And I would just pick my way down. And then there was this long hallway that it was all glass, and I could see vegetation kind of growing, and it looked sort of ancient. And then I would come out, and I would be in this beautiful place, and there was like a mosque and a soup kitchen and like a fountain, and then that became a jumping off point. It was crazy. So a crazy feeling. That's probably not a great word to use, but I used it. So those are some interesting ways that I've gotten to the lower world. So however you get there, these days, I just arrive there. I don't have a sense of traveling there. And so that can also happen. However we get there is fine. It can be very strange and bizarre, or very linear, and like finding, a stairway down, or a hole, or a crack in a tree, or whatever. So, it's exciting. What's going to happen next, I just want to check in with Julie one more time and see if you are able to share.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. I am in Mississippi. This is my first experience with journeying. And when I started out, I was taking a spiral staircase, and I changed my mind and went back. And I was also struggling with which tree at the beginning. I guess I back up to that. But then I settled on, like someone else said, a tree from my growing up years, a great big magnolia where I could sit on the bottom branch. And so I tried those spiral stairs, backed up, and then there was a slide, like a childhood slide. And I took that, And I could feel the breeze as I went down, and I felt that sudden stop that you feel at the bottom. And I sat there for a long time and just felt the grass around the bottom of the slide. It was very green. There were herbs I could smell. There were ferns. There were great big green leaves of some type. And there was a path off to the left. And honestly, something very similar to this had already appeared to me in a dream earlier. So I found that interesting. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was really, really similar.
Wow, that's fun. I wonder if I'm sitting here thinking on my at my age, if my body would tolerate going down a slide these days, because it sounds like if I remember really liking that. But that sounds really great. And all the green and the smells, that must have been really lovely. So I'm glad you noticed all of those things. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to check back in with Allison.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm Allison. I'm originally from Texas, but I'm living in Costa Rica right now. And originally, this is my first time like really doing this. And at first, my brain was just so distracted, and there was all this banging that happened right at the same time on my roof. I'm not sure. Now it's gone naturally. But that was like really a struggle to get through that. So I just sort of like abandoned trying to force myself to do anything and trying to just listen to the drums and let myself relax and not force anything. And then I saw, I don't know if they were like true waves, but it was like a lot of light flashing and sort of electronic waves, kind of maybe. And then my head started popping a lot and releasing, and I have a lot of pain in my body, and by the time it was over, I felt so good pain wise. So not a total fail.
No, I mean, if you come out of that feeling less pain, that's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So this is some of the other things that we can access. I'm intrigued by the sudden noise on your roof. It could just be a coincidence, but it is something to think about, like being present,
And my earbuds wouldn't work. I've been trying to get them to work this whole time. That would have made it fine, but they're noise canceling. But yeah, maybe there's a reason this happened. So
yeah. So that's an interesting thing too. So when we do these things, there are things that we can do to ask our guides for healings and things like that. And these are all benefits of going in and doing this kind of work. Yes, it's really interesting, but it's also a support system. They're not here to take over and do things for you, but they are here as support. So we are going to do another journey. I want to check in. Do folks need like a quick break, or how are we feeling? We wanted to go right into another journey. Okay. I think we'll do another journey, and then maybe folks can write things down, and we'll take a short little break, and then we'll go from there. So this next journey, deep breaths and relax and focus on the drumming. But the intention, I have a hand up. Asa, go ahead.
I was just curious if it's going to be about the same amount of time.
Yes. Do you need, is it long enough or not long enough? Usually,
No, I was just curious.
Yes, we're gonna stick with this time. And in the interest of, what we want to do is pick something and stick with it and give ourselves the opportunity to move forward rather than changing things, you know? So we're going to stick with this drumming and this time through these beginning stages. Later on your own, I encourage you to experiment, but when you do, pick something that feels comfortable and right, and then stick with it and work through learning how to do this work with one thing. And then later, when you feel like this is a breeze and I can get in, then you can start jumping around and try different things. In fact, I journey to music sometimes. Sometimes I know someone said the drum got a little loud and I needed to change my volume. Sometimes I feel that way too, and that I have to just shut it off. Yes, we're going to stick with this through the whole thing. And I think that's the kind of a little bit of an advantage, is that we get used to that and working with that. And then we don't have to worry about getting used to a new cadence. So this next journey, we're going to return to where we felt we were supposed to be going. And I know for some of us, we're still getting there, and that's okay. We are going to set an intent. And this intent is for us to meet our first guide. Or maybe you have a guide that you already know about that you want to go visit. But I think going into the intention is that for this work, it may actually end up being a different guide. So keep your mind open. And we're going to travel again to where we thought we were going. So folks who felt like they should be traveling up, go back up. And we're going to travel to find our first guide that's going to do this work with us and to guide us on these first journeys that we're doing, this first leg. And this is a relationship that after we stop our class today, you're going to continue to build on. So when you access these places, this is a massive entryway into a massive world or universe. And there's a lot of beings that you can interact with in there and will come across in there. And we need someone to help guide us and also to keep us safe. This is absolutely safe work, and you don't have to interact with anything that you don't want to or talk to anything that you don't want to. Just like in this world, you can decide not to talk to someone. And if you feel any discomfort at all, you just open your eyes and, take your earbuds out, or, stop the drumming for yourself when you're on your own, and you can stop and reflect. So this is absolutely, you are controlling where you're going and who you're interacting with. But it is a big place with a lot of things. And so we take this guide, and for these journeys, and I do this, I've been doing this for 23 years now, and I still go in and think, okay, where's my guide? Who's coming today? And they are with me when I journey. And so you're going to do this every time. And so this is your first foray. Maybe some of you I know already have guides, and maybe you'll be working with them, but maybe you'll have a new one. And this is going to be our first time that we relationship build. Now, that being said, the way we communicate usually for most folks, it's a power animal. Okay. So it might be a spirit in animal form, but it might not be. So be open to that too. But for most of us, it'll be a power animal. Now, you're going to ask it if they're the guide, because not always the first thing that you interact with is your guide. And if they're not, just keep going and to find who your guide is. You might even ask them, well, can you lead me to my guide? If you feel comfortable with that being that you interact with. So then you're going to ask them. Now, not all of us hear words. Not all of us are going to see their mouth moving. I certainly don't when I see my power animal. Sometimes I hear voices, or sometimes I get images, or sometimes I just understand what they're trying to tell me, even though there doesn't seem to be any vocalization, or sometimes they'll show me images. So what I tell folks is, you are meeting someone and you speak different languages. So in real life, if you met someone who spoke a different language than you would have to muddle through communicating with each other. And there would be a lot of different ways that you did that. And over time, the more you interact, the more you begin to understand each other's language, and the easier it is to communicate. You'll have a shorthand for it because you've done it so much. So it might go in and be very easy. It might go in and be challenging. All situations are normal. And I will say one thing, a lot of classes out there will say you go in and you ask your guide the name, its name. I will tell you that for years, I never got names. And I was sort of like miffed that everybody was like, oh, I went in and I met my guide and this was its name. And then we had this big conversation, all these things. Well, that was not the case for me personally. I didn't get names for years and years and years. And they kind of got sick of me asking, to be honest. And a lot of what I was told was, I've been called a lot of names. Like, names don't really matter. But when I started to become a practitioner, I said, can I have names, because I keep calling you like the linebacker, because I don't know what else to call you. I'd like to call you something else, because it was just a very big guide. So I used to just sort of make up nicknames for them. I had one that I used to call the slam dunk, because we interacted so well together that I always could understand what he was saying easily. And so finally they said, okay, here are some names that you can use. Now, some of them I think really are their names. Some, I think they just made them up on the spot for me. So don't get hung up on that part of it. Maybe I'm personalizing a little too much on that based on my experiences, but it was very frustrating for me. And so I just want to make it clear that if you don't get a name, don't worry about it. There's also some, I think, kind of misinformation about, oh, well, you're not supposed to reveal what your power animal is or who your guide is, and you're not supposed to tell people. If you do, then they won't work with you anymore. That's very strange, and I don't know why people think that. I do think that you can ask them, is it okay to tell people? But generally speaking, most of mine don't have a problem with it. However, I do consider these very personal relationships. So I don't just run around town telling everybody, it's the conversation appropriate, but that's just for me. And so these are, like I said, personal relationships, and you will know if you feel comfortable talking about it or not. And so here is where I'm going to move into letting folks share as they want. And I'm going to really encourage you to share, because you can see through this first when I called on folks, and I'm so grateful that you all felt comfortable sharing. But it is incredibly helpful to share and to hear other people's experiences, and to then have questions asked and things like that. And we get to talk about what's happening, what might be happening in different scenarios. So I really encourage you to share, but I don't want to call on everyone and feel like you're forced to share. So we're going to do this journey with the intent to return to this place and meet what will become our guide for journeying in this first foray into this practice. And that's really the only goal. If you get in there real quick, you can start to communicate with them. That's fine. And one of the things that you can ask, because we're going to do this in another journey, is what are some of the skills or gifts that they'd like to work on us with and really help us with in this first leg. You can jump ahead. If you get in there early, you can start to have this conversation. But don't worry about that. Just worry about getting in. And if you get in and you don't meet your guide right away, that's okay. We're going to have another opportunity to go back and do that work. So don't have any pressure on yourself. There's no grading and there's no judgment. All right. So if everyone feels comfortable, why don't we relax again and get our eye coverings so that we can listen to the drum again. And then we'll start back journeying to either the lower world, or if you got called up to the upper world. And the intent is to meet our first spirit guide. If it's likely a power animal, but keep your mind open. It may be a different kind of guide. Okay. I'm going to give folks some time to write things down. And then what I also think is we're going to build in a little break here for folks to use the restroom, to maybe drink some water, or eat a little snack. If you're feeling a little bit spacey, I recommend eating a little food that'll put you right into your body. But we're not going to take too long. So my clock says it's 11:01. So let's take 7 minutes to write in our journals and also maybe do a quick bathroom break. So, well, it says 11:02 now. So let's get back here 11:10. I'll give you 8 minutes. How's that? And I'm just going to mute and put a picture up on my screen for the duration of those 8 minutes. And I'll see you back here after a short little break. But make sure you write your stuff in the journal first. Okay, folks. I hope we're all back. Hard to tell. All right. So I am going to ask if anyone is up for sharing.
I'll share. This is
Thanks.
Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
My animal guide is this amazingly powerful but kind elephant. And one of the attributes that I noticed right away is that he holds me on his back and doesn't let me fall. And when I asked about what he was there to help me with, it was about powerfully and intently moving, but slowly moving away from my past. And a big part of the let me back up and say this, because I neglected to say it about the very first one. When we first went in, I had literal tears because I felt so honored, I guess, to be in the place where I was. And I felt that even more powerfully when I made contact with this elephant. And I mentioned the dream earlier. This elephant had appeared to me in a dream earlier in this very similar place. And a big part of what happened, peonies all across the back part of this place where I was, that would cover or represent, I guess, the past, but the lessons learned, the beautiful part of it, and mask the hurt and the pain. And when I looked back, all I would see was beauty. More, but I'll stop with that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Anne.
Hi, everyone. So this is what I have to share about guides for me. I have, first I'll say I met Sarah in 2015, and Sarah healed some things that really changed my life. When I related to guides, I have never ever met a guide in lower world. I can't even with that as the task. I didn't even get to go into lower world. I don't know what to make of that. That's been going on since I met Sarah in 2015. I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm an avid journeying, but I have practiced with different people, but I have never, I have so many guides in my life. I have been not working for 7 months, and I have been moved by so many of my guides in this life, but I have never met a guide in the lower world.
Okay, thanks, Anne. And also I got a little emotional at the beginning there. What I will say about this is there is another world that we haven't touched on heavily at all yet, but I did mention it as one of those, and that is the middle world. And that is the world in which we find ourselves now. And the shamanic approach is to the middle world where we reside, is that everything has spirit. And so these deep connections that we feel when we visit nature, but everything has spirit. And so you can, I'll just use water to talk about this, Anne, because that's where you feel so, held by Mother Earth, I think is maybe a good way to put it. Is that you find and you talk about, in this life, these guides and things, and what guides you through life. And there is a middle world here, and we can journey to middle world energies and guidance. And that is, a lot of what shamanic belief has to do with is that when we learned how different plants, for example, could be used medicinally to heal us, that it started with a shamanic person or shaman having a conversation with the plant and letting the plant tell the shaman what it could be used for in healing. And so there is a whole world here that we can communicate with also. And Anne, probably you're very fine-tuned to the middle world and those energies. So don't let it worry you. Okay. Betsy, I see your hand up.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually had an experience which I think I was surprised by. But it really helped what you said before about not having to visualize it. So what I realized is that I just sense things. Like I don't see them and I don't feel them exactly, but I just like know that it's there. So once I kind of like validated that that was okay, then I was able to have an experience. So yeah, I was kind of in like it felt like the Jungle Book. Like it was like bright and green, and the first thing I had was like a monkey, and I was like running on the tops of these palm trees with the monkey. And then like we came down and I like had this sense that there was like this little tiny mouse nearby. But I didn't really like focus on that. And then there was like this snake. I've met like 4 animals. And the snake was like parallel to me, and it was doing that thing that snakes do, but then it was like inside of my spine, and my body was like kind of doing that. And the word flow came through. And then I kind of fell out of the whole experience for a minute, and then the drumming got really intense, and then there was like these big stomping feet, and I realized it was like a gorilla, and the gorilla was stomping its feet, and then the gorilla was like beating its chest. This is like when it was like the most intense drumming. And then I realized I had like sensed the gorilla earlier, but I didn't focus on it at the time. And yeah, that was basically it.
That's exciting.
I don't know which one is the spirit animal or the, guide, but
we're going to go back in so you can ask.
okay.
We're going to go back in. Thank you. And Joanne too. I didn't say thank you, but thank you for sharing. This is awesome. Yeah. Eric, I see your hand up.
Yeah. I'll just share what happened. I don't know quite what to make of it yet, but when the drumming started, I just had this instant flash immediately of like a man dancing kind of dressed in like feathers. And I like just kind of cleared that out. And I went to this tree, this redwood tree again, and slid down. This time just opened a little door, slid down into this sort of green hazy jungle where I found myself before. And like almost immediately this scarlet macaw just like flew up, and I kind of had this thought of like, oh, that just seemed like that was a little quick or something. I don't know. But like, okay, I'll go with this. And asked if he was my guide, and I kind of almost got like the question just back. Like it was sort of this like playful kind of like just like joking energy, like, you know, like not really wanting to give me a clear answer, and just kind of flew around me and landed on me and landed on my head. And I then was kind of curious if I could just sort of like, or maybe he sort of gave me the suggestion to just fly with him. And so I grabbed onto his feet, and the idea was like, well, maybe we're going to meet someone else. So he like flew me down deeper and kind of deposited me in this clearing. And then again, like almost immediately there was this thing, like big black mass slinking in the shadow kind of, and emerged, and it was this Black Panther. And again, my mind was kind of like, that was okay, that was fast, but I don't know. And I was sort of questioning, okay, is this a guide? I don't know. And again, I sort of got this non-answer. Gonna skip ahead a bit, but the panther left and macaw came back, and I flew up, sort of back up higher, tried to talk to them more. And he like started grooming me, and just again, it was like kind of just playing around, like not really. Oh, then I did get this kind of sense of like, yeah, I can, sure, I'm your guide. Like, yeah, if you want me to be, like, I'm here. And then I felt this strong sense of like kind of balls of energy in my hands, which was kind of like the answer of like, okay, yes. And then it kind of left with I was just sort of walking by myself, and the panther comes back up, and it's just like we're just kind of silently walking down the path, and I'm asking like, what are we doing? We're just like, we're just walking. That's it. Just like walking and paying attention. And that was sort of towards the end. I feel like that the panther, I was sort of just observing this, like it was very contrasting to the macaw, which was very playful and lighthearted, and the panther was like very kind of just like serious and present, and just kind of like we're just going to be like present, yeah, here. So that was what I got.
Well, thank you so much. Awesome. And I do one quick comment. So you may have more than one guide, you know, we don't always just have one. A lot of us will just start with one, and maybe that will stay. I get questions a lot like, will this be my one for the duration? Maybe, but maybe not. I have a lot. Folks that end up getting a call to become a practitioner usually have so many they don't really know what's happening to them when it first happens. Playfulness is all of my guides are hilarious. They're really fun, except for one. One is like, I couldn't get him to crack a smile for the first like 6 months that I worked with him. And Eric, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Panther has been a very long-term Black Panther guide of mine. And that, in fact, when I joked and said that's the one I used to call the slam dunk, because I worked with him the most, you know, with clients and for myself as well. So I'm kind of excited that it made an appearance today. But playfulness is part of the relationship, you know, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Thank you for sharing that. And then I'm going to call on Hannah because I see your hand up.
Yeah, I went back up to the canopy, and there was a little monkey there. I think someone else mentioned the monkey, and I was kind of like, this is cliche. I'm in the canopy and there's a monkey. So like my mind was still like, I don't know about this. But I could see his face so clearly. It was like I kept like looking at him, and looked so intently at me, and actually did a little Google search afterward, and I think it's a spider monkey. It looked just like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And he was like very small, like kind of like squirrel size, and he jumped up onto my shoulder, kind of like a bird, and he was just hanging out there for a while, like playing, and then he put his hand into my hand, and he just kept like pressing it there, and it was like he was trying to show me something, but I like couldn't figure it out, and he kept pressing, and then he kind of like gave up with me, and he's like, ah, she's not gonna get it. Then he just started jumping around the trees and like kind of like doing like gymnast bar work with his tail, just like flying around. And the interesting thing was like I kept thinking like, oh no, this is just fake, like I'm just making this up. But then it was like he suddenly left, and I could feel his presence leave. Like, and I tried to get him back, and I was like, oh no, he's gone. And yeah, and then his face was just kind of ingrained into my mind, but I realized there was a presence gone. I couldn't back or anything. So yeah, he was also very playful. Like I feel like when he left was when I was realized what he was trying to do with me, which was like, okay, fun or like be or light or whatever. And it was like that was cheesy, and he was like, no, she's not ready to figure out what I. Oh, and then I did ask what his name was, and it was Noah, which I thought was ridiculous for a teeny little monkey. Silly name for you. You don't look like a Noah. But that's what he said his name was. So yeah, it's pretty weird.
You know, those name things. Thank you so much, Hannah. You know, the name stuff is just so funny because remember I told you I didn't get names for a really long time, and I just sort of like didn't worry about it until I started doing practitioner work. And we went down the line and they gave me their names, and one of them, who I'm going to be honest, looked not like the name he gave me, and he told me his name was Michael, and I was like, what? And he said, yeah, I like to be modern. It was clear he made that up on the spot, and I was like, all right, that's what we'll call you, I guess. And one quick thing about this is, you know, when we go in there and we see different guides, there's the ones that are in animal form, our power animals, and then there's ones that are not animals, and they have more of a human-like appearance to us, or humanoid. We may see, you know, for example, if I go in there, I'm of Italian descent, and I get in there and I start seeing a lot of Celtic imagery, and I start thinking, what is this about? What I'm going to say is that I just want to touch on briefly the shamanic perspective on ancestry. So we have DNA ancestry, obviously, as human beings in physical form. And so we think of that as our ancestry, but in shamanic, there's something called a milk line also. So if you're adopted, for example, or even if like a neighbor, for example, took care of you for much of your life growing up, they can be seen as part of your ancestor, part of your ancestry, part of your family. There's also something else that's called a spirit line. And all rules kind of go out the window, because you do have a spirit clan and you've had them over lifetimes. So you have to, in shamanic belief, we are reborn and there is reincarnation. And it's unlikely. I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it couldn't ever happen, but it's unlikely that if you chose to come back again, that you would choose to be the same exact thing that you were before, your DNA, your gender, your, you know, your ethnicity, whatever. It wouldn't be as rich of a learning experience each time you decided to reincarnate. If you came back, if I came back as an Italian white woman living in the United States every time. So we may go in there and we may even come to understand that these are spiritual ancestors of ours, not always, but we may start seeing things that are confusing. Why do I keep seeing Celtic imagery? Why do I keep seeing things that look indigenous in here? Why does this look Russian? Why does this, you know, let go of that. And even if you learn that something is part of your spiritual ancestry in there, it certainly is not your ancestry in this lifetime. So we want to be careful that we're not taking on a culture that really isn't ours. However, you can certainly honor what it is that you're seeing and perhaps some rituals that they give you. I tend to be very private about what I see as my spiritual ancestry because I want to be careful that people don't think I'm claiming a heritage that is not mine from a DNA perspective in this lifetime. So you may see a lot of different things in there, and don't worry so much about it, and just honor it and pay attention. Julie. Julie, do you still want to share? I see your hand up. Maybe that's an accident. Okay, well, we'll move on. I'm looking to see if I wrote. Sometimes when you talk, I write little notes down to remind myself to tell you guys things. So we are going to do another journey, and I'm going to talk a little bit about setting an intent before you journey, and then also not setting an intent. And I'm one of the few people that teaches the non-intent aspect of it, but we'll get to that. We all go in there for various reasons. We can go in there to ask for advice and clarity, for understanding what's going on with ourselves, to ask for healings, to help us in our relationships and things like that. When we go in there, we're always in a state of asking, first of all, and the spirits on the other side expect that. They show up because they want to help. However, we want to make sure that these relationships are healthy. And so we also want to sometimes go in just to spend time with our guides and to get to know them better. And we also want to ask them, is there something I can do for you in this world? A simple way to give back is they don't have physical form on this plane. And so when we are in our daily lives, when we're someplace where we're experiencing something pleasant, being in our bodies, whether it's the smell of fresh cut grass or the feel of swimming in the ocean and things like that, if we hold our spirit guides in our mind while we are experiencing those things and let them experience it through us, it is a very big way of being able to give back. And for me, I do also advise folks that if you have a power animal, if you can get a small, either a picture of it, or I have, for one of mine, I have jewelry that has their image on it. Things that when you look at it, it pulls the spirit guide into your mind. And another really fantastic way is if you're creative at all, you can do some artwork associated with that. That's a really wonderful way. Shamanic creativity is often what we consider a connection to the spirit world. So it's the act of creation, the act of creating things, art, music, poetry, visual arts, things like that. Can be opening a doorway as well. And some people also are able to open that doorway through physical activity. And I do know a few people that I have worked with as clients who really only can get into this space by doing some sort of extreme activity. We talk about runner's high, which sounds terrible to me. I don't run, but people get that, or through rock climbing and things like that. I've seen folks have those kinds of experiences doing physical activity. Yoga, if you can do some body work on yoga, that's also a nice place to have those spaces open up, acupuncture and things. But we do want to think about these relationships as we do in this world. And when we do that, we can build something more balanced. If we had a friendship where we were only taking in this world, it wouldn't be the healthiest relationship. So we also want to think about ways that we can give back. And one simple way to do that is to ask. And also just learn about the animal. The form becomes important, you know. There are qualities about these power animals that show themselves to you that are a part of the gifts and things that they'll bring to you, or awareness into areas of your life that you want to work on. And this is why when you start to research, certain things will jump out at you that may not jump out to another person. So it's very personal. And there's not a one size fits all. If you see a monkey, it means this. If you see an elephant, it means this. It's very personal to you. So it's through your research and also getting to know them. When it's mythical, and I will say one of my guides that I did all of my shamanic training with was mythical. It was a little more difficult. And so that's going to be a direct one-on-one relationship with the power animal where you're learning most of your information. You can certainly look up the lore. My experience is it's not all very good. So they have to take some direct direction from them on that. And also the guides that are humanoid. So this leads us to when they come, we want to ask. So there's a funny story where I met a guide that goes along with my polar bear that I was talking about. And when I first met this guide, I was like, oh, this is great. I have a new guide to work with and do healings with and things like that. And so he worked with me for months, working with clients and things like that. And then I don't know what happened, but one day I just said, when you showed up, I just, is that what you're doing? You're working with me on clients? Or, I finally remembered to ask him why he showed up. And he said, I've been waiting for you to ask. And he just was really nice. He did all the healing work with me and everything with clients. But he said, I'm actually here to teach you something. And I was like, oh, well, that's embarrassing, So we want to remember to ask. What is it that you want to show me? What is it that you want to work with me on? Why are you here to work with me? And so that's what I want us to do next. I want us to ask them. And if this is going very quickly for you, as it is for some, then, you can expand on that and move to asking what can you do for them? And how to give back. Now this is a new relationship, so they may say nothing right now, but they also may give you something very simple to do. Or, you can offer or if they say nothing, you can still offer to do something. But this is how we get to know each other. But the first order here is to ask why they've come to work with you and what they want to work with you on. After we do this, I want to talk about when we go in further with intent and formulating questions and what is the best way to do that. So we're going to do this now, and we'll come out and do a little bit of sharing. And then we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to do a very personalized journey that has to do with a question that we formulate ourselves. Okay. Is everyone ready? Oh,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask do you recommend, like, if we encountered a couple of potential guides, do we choose one to really work with and, on this journey, or just see sort of who comes?
Yes. I do want you. I don't know why we're. There you go. That's the muting is so frustrating. But yes, you're going to really use your instincts in there. So if if you go back in there and you see those two guides that you were talking about, and you feel more drawn to one or the other, it sounds a little bit like was a macaw, right? It sounds a little bit like that one is like, if you want, he's a lot more lighthearted. And you want to go with your gut. Now, what I can say is if a guide says they're there to work with you and you have any discomfort, I should mention this. It is okay to say, you know what, I don't actually want to, I'm going to work with this other guide. It's okay to do that. And they're not going to get mad at you. If you have a weird reaction about that and they do get mad at you, then you really don't want to work with them. But they're kind. They're not going to judge you for one or the other. They won't be insulted or hurt. You can be very thankful and polite and tell them you're going to work with the other one. So if you can actually choose probably, but you want to get in there and have those conversations. Okay. All right. And Anne, just I know that you just let this be whatever it needs to be for you in terms of when you journey and the information that you get in these relationships that you build, because it could be with just nature. It could be with the ocean, things like that. Karen, you have a question?
Sorry. I think I just want to name it for myself. Like when I went, I really didn't get any guide come, and I can already feel like, oh, I'm not going to get anything. So I think I just wanted to like say it and maybe receive a little more encouragement before I just go in.
Yeah. So this is the thing. We are all going to work at our own pace. And I know this feels, we're doing this, there's a set time and a beginning and an end, and we're working with a particular drum track. And it isn't one size fits all. It just isn't. So if I impress anything on everyone, this is working very different for Anne as it is for everyone else. This is very different from my first experiences journeying, for example. That you want to let this, you are 100% going at your own pace. And so if you, I really encourage you to let this unfold the way it's going to unfold for you. So don't feel that pressure, go in and feel what's comfortable for you. If you're still in a space of learning where it is that you're going to go and feeling like you're still formulating these places that you're journeying and trying to interpret the images or the impressions or the feelings that you get, just let it be that. That's great. There's a time after this. We're not, hopefully, what I hope is that after this class, everyone continues to do the work. And as you do it more, it gets easier. As you do, just like anything else, we're not experts right out of the gate ever at anything unless you're a savant, right? So it takes time, and they'll really change and evolve, and it'll be what it is for you. And it may be very different than all of the scenarios that we talked today, and it doesn't make it wrong. It makes it your experience journeying, and that's the beauty of it. And that's also one of the great things about coming together or journeying with other folks, is that we get to talk about what our experiences are. And when we do, the more people we are able to do that with, we understand it's a huge swath of how this works for folks, and it's very different across the board for everyone. So, you are having good experiences, Karen, so don't worry about that at all, really.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we are going to go ahead, and I'm going to start the drum again. We're going to go in and we're going to talk to our power animal or spirit guide, and we're going to ask them what they're there to help us with and work on with. And if we get that far, if we have extra time, we can also ask what it is that we could do for them to give back. Okay, we'll give you a couple minutes to write some things down and to come back. And then see if anyone feels like sharing. Okay, hopefully you've had enough time to write some things down, and hopefully things went well, and I hope there are a few folks who might be open to sharing.
Ask a question. This is
Yes, Julie, I just didn't hear the beginning of that part.
okay. Please forgive me for struggling with the technology so much to everybody. I apologize. But I wondered if I could ask you a question about the whole idea that most of, or not, a lot of what I've gotten today is like a continuation of a really intense dream I had recently. And I just wondered if that's, I don't know. I just wanted your comments on that.
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that. And it would be great to recommend something to you. So there are folks who, I can think of one person actually who was in my journey group, who most of her shamanic journeying comes through when she's sleeping, through dreams. There's a woman named Dawn Brunke, Brunke, I think is how you spell her last name. And we've never met in person, but we met in sort of a strange way. She's in Alaska. She wrote a book called Dreaming with Polar Bears. And she reached out to me, this was years ago. And I said, yeah, I'd love to chat. And I thought to myself, oh, before I chat with this woman, I should probably look at what she's written. So I know a little bit about her. And I read this book. And as I was reading what she wrote, I thought, oh, she's journeying in her dreams immediately. And so that might be a resource for you. And I'm happy to recommend it. She's a lovely person. She's an animal communicator, I believe, but she also does these amazing, journeys in her sleep. And so that is something that happens. For me, I dream and I journey both when I sleep. And I wish I had a really solid way to tell you how I know the difference. And I don't, but when I'm in there, I can give you an example. I was just having a normal dream one night, and the only reason I remember that I was even having a dream, because often I'll wake up and I know I dreamed, but I don't remember what it was. In the middle of this weird dream that I was having, all of a sudden I turned and there was a giant badger standing there. And I had this moment in my mind where I looked at this badger and went, that's not part of this dream. That's something else coming through. So my mind kind of got conscious for a second and said, okay, this badger's important. And I was trying to force myself to remember the badger when I woke up the next morning. And I woke up and I did remember the badger, but I just kind of, I don't know. I just thought it was weird. I kind of blew it off a little bit, and I went to my day job. And I went to my day job, and I happened to stop into an office I'd never been in before to ask a question of someone. And I turned and there was a snow globe with a badger in the snow globe. And I was like, I still was in denial. I was like, oh, is that a Wolverine? And they were like, no, it's Michigan. I think it's the Michigan badger. And I was like, God, all right. Okay. I hear you, badger, you know. And it was very literal, the meeting almost. They was trying to badger me to get something done that they wanted me to do. And they were badgering me. And it came through in dreams. So stuff comes through in dreams 100%. And I do know some folks that all of their journeys come through dreams. And Dawn's book would be a really great resource, because she's, like I said, it's called Dreaming with Polar Bears. And when I read it, I just was like, oh, these are journeys, you know. So you might take a look at that. But yes, that is 100% a thing. Is that helpful, I hope?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Good. Okay. All right, I'm going to call on Anne, because your hand's up.
Hi, everyone. I had just this really fun thing happen, and it kind of ties into everything that was just said. I think I kind of was falling into a dream state, and all of a sudden, this huge bear, it wasn't a polar bear, but it was this ginormous bear with this great big, like bush, like huge basket of honey, was sitting there and just eating honey and laughing and pointing up. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to come out of the sea. And so I go up, and then I see, like, I don't know, probably 30 faces of human faces representing all of life on the planet, and human form life. And many of them just people with real wrinkled skin, like of wisdom and age. And so that was a really wonderful experience I just had with this journey.
My gosh, thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Karen.
Yeah, so I I actually like felt emotion come up right after I spoke before we went in, and I was like, okay, let it come and like surrender to the process. And I realized at a certain point, like I just needed to not be laying down. And so yeah, so I sat up and it was much better for me. And part of so I had a dragonfly come, and it's just like, okay, just let it be whatever it is. And it felt like I was trying to get back to where I was the first time in this field, and like this swarm of people were like walking in a direction, but then the dragonfly took me another direction, like away from the people. And it felt like the message, I was like, what are you showing me? What are you teaching me? And it was like to be curious, and that like the direction's not always the one you think it's gonna be. And also, like, it's okay to be alone, or it's okay to be by myself, and that I'm not really alone, but it's also felt, the deeper message felt like it's okay to be in another realm, and that doesn't mean I'm separate from this, from my like normal realm, which felt like, yeah, emotional now saying it. Yeah, and there was a little bit more, but I think that is what I want to share. Oh, actually, I did ask if there was something I could do. I was like, okay, I'm in, I gotta ask all the questions. And it seemed like, well, I asked for a name and kept getting like S names, but it didn't feel clear. And then it landed on Sky, and it was just kind of like, okay, Sky. And I was like, what can I do? And there was a sense of like this dragonfly wanting, like, not knowing what it's like to walk, and wanting me to like walk on my tiptoes, but then also wanting me to like stomp on the ground. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's awesome. And also I'm really happy, that you were so worried about it. And then, just takes the permission to go at your own pace, maybe is all we all need. So that's exciting. Okay, Allison. Oops, yeah, we'll call Allison, then I'll call Betsy. Sorry. Can
you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, well, I didn't share before, but before I kind of had like too much happening, like a lot of faces flashing, and it felt kind of nauseating a little bit for me, and I couldn't really focus on anything. So this next time I decided, you told me once that I had a spirit animal that was a camel, and I kept connecting this feeling ever since you told me that. There was a camel that I worked with, and she tragically died. And she was like really a sensitive being. And her and I were oddly like we vibed big time. And I kept thinking like maybe it's her. And I've even been like carrying a picture around of her with me. And so I just decided to like explore that a little bit. And she totally came, and I cried the whole time. It's like actually really emotional to talk about it now. She pretty much just told me like she's okay, and she was like in an enchanted forest eating, and then she walked over to me, and they do this weird like ear twitch thing when they connect with you, and she was doing that, and kind of making like gurgle sounds. And then she said she wanted to show me something, and she showed me like this little pathway into another area where there was like a big pond and there were horses everywhere, and they just like surrounded me. And she told me that it's okay to come here anytime I want. And like it's okay to be happy and go there and feel safe and feel happy. And then and this part's kind of funny. I asked her, I never got to like go fast on her when I rode her in real time, in real life. And I said, can we go for a ride? And it was really cool. Like I could really feel her, and like we felt this like really freedom feeling with her. And then I realized I didn't really want that. She used to do this thing where she would lay down and I would sit with her, and she would kind of wrap her neck around me and do the ear twitch thing, and they do this gurgling thing. And so that's what we did. And then I asked her, what can I do for you to, what is it that you need from me? And she said, I want you to keep remembering me. So then I cried. Blah.
I would have been crying too. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's exciting. And also they gave you a place to go for healing, I remember feeling really bad once years ago, and I went to one of my guides, his house, what seemed to be his house, and all of my guides started showing up, and I was sort of laying on this bed that was in there, and I had my power animal was sort of up on the bed with me, kind of like snuggling. And I said, "What are we doing?" And they said, "Nothing. Like, you don't feel great. So we're just here for you to just be with you." And it felt amazing. And it was a healing for me. And so, you know, how exciting that they said, "Come here anytime." I mean, that's a wonderful, wonderful restorative place to go to. That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think I really needed that. So thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, Betsy.
Hi. So I came in to like the same, it's like feels like I was in like this with this scenery behind me on the first one, and then it was like the same shot basically in the second one, but I came in through the waterfall instead, like through a different part of the scene. And then kind of felt like I was supposed to go up into the sky, but I didn't. I went down, and then I like some of the same animals were there. The mouse and the gorilla were both there, and like I was just looking at them, like just I was asking like, "Oh, what, what do you have to tell me, or what's the message?" Or I don't know what I asked exactly, but and it wasn't in words. It was just like this difference of like this tiny mouse and this big gorilla. And then and so that was like the first, like both of those things were like about like a different perspective, like that there's a lot of different perspectives, because then there was like other animals, like there was, I don't know, I just could tell that there was like a big bushy tail beating the drum, but I don't know what kind of animal it was. And then there was the snake, and like the snake like wrapped itself around me and like squeezed kind of, and like the word I got was intimacy, but it kind of reminded me of how like when I'm a C-section baby, and so are my kids. Like I had 2 C-sections, and there's like something that you miss when you're a C-section baby, which is like the squeezing out. But that snake like squeezing me, like I had that like sense of that. Yeah, and then like I just like laid down, and like there was just like, it was like I knew there was like all these beings around me and the drums, and I was just kind of laying in the jungle. And then at the end I would just asked if there was like a message, and the message was I think it was like, there are many perspectives and you need to share yours. But that was it.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
You know, it's really an interesting thing. So this is one of the good things of this, because when I, you know, to be honest, Betsy, I'm always like, you need to do like 900 more journeys. You have so much going on in there, you know, to get like, you know, more clarity, and in a good way. I don't mean it, it's not critical. It's like, oh, that's exciting, but oh, there's so much information coming through to ponder, to go back and look at, to build on, to ask more questions and things like that. And so to me, that's very exciting, you know, and, but, you know, this thing about journeying is it's often not clear right away. So if you do get some clarity and you know about different perspectives, and that it's important to share yours, huge to just even get that. So it's just really really very exciting. For me, that I will say things were a lot more confusing for me, and just in the interest of really being honest, the first guide I ever saw in there was not a power animal. It was what I refer to as my principal guide. And for a lot of folks, we don't just have the one guides that we're seeing in front of our face. We have a lot, and usually there's sort of one directing things. It's different for everyone, so it's not always the case. But I do know for a lot of folks, and certainly for me, there's sort of one directing who my next teacher will be and things like that. And they cycle in and out. So the first guide I ever saw was more human looking. And that was the first guide. And it was a confusing experience, although a very loving one, of course, but I didn't quite understand what was happening because it was one of my first journeys ever. And then I started to see power animals coming through to work with me, and a lot of them. So it was like, who do I work with here? And I did all of this. I just jumped in. I didn't have anyone to talk to about this stuff until it got so confusing. I found someone, I found someone on the East Coast to work with and said, I don't know what's happening to me. I need help. But like I said, I'm sort of in awe of folks who get answers right away, because it certainly was not that way for me. All right. Patricia.
Hi. So the second time I was dealing with a butterfly, and but I kind of moved beyond the butterfly in this one, and I settled on, I'd always think that I have with me the great blue heron. It's like I see a great blue heron and I know everything's going to be fine. I have that relationship with it. And I have a heron across right over there that my son took. And but the heron's very individual, very strong individual. You always see them alone. You only ever see them, well, here in New England, you only see them alone. And except if they're mating, and they just, they're just strong. They have beautiful wingspan. They're just incredible. Everybody sees them, stops and go, wow, did you see that heron? So I was trying to find an animal, and I have, I went to Peru in 2019. Ever since I've gone, my kids call me Mama Llama. And so I was like, and I'm lying here on the couch, and they had given me these picture of these 3 llamas, and they have the colorful little things in their head and everything. And the llama is in a herd. It's not, a great blue heron's more individual, and the llama's in the herd. And so I also think the llama is also very strong and adapt, and can lead its group and its herd. And that's sort of what I do with my family. So I'm thinking, so basically I had this very great sense of happiness and joy and peace. Like, this is like, I just love this, right? And then I get this image, which I've been kind of like lately, I don't know why, I send like these things to my kids about like Snoopy. Like I see Snoopy, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be more playful too, because I saw something today, like Snoopy was doing yoga poses, and I saw it on like Instagram or something. So I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be more playful because I'm always very serious. So that was kind of nice. And then just making the connection between the independent heron and the group llama is a good thing for me, as a person who is pretty independent, but also very loving with my family. But also I need to also keep the community also outside of my family as well. So that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Is anyone else just checking in, making sure? Okay, we're gonna do one more journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, this is going to be a personal journey that you determine what it is that you're going to go in there to do or ask. I want to talk a little bit about how we phrase what our intent is. And a good idea is, if you come up with something, and write it down before you go in there. So it's really clear because you've put it on paper. But I want to talk about how we phrase things and how spirit sees things as opposed to how we see things. So say, for example, we're contemplating whether or not to take a particular job that's being offered to us. If we go in and say, should I take this job? They may say yes. And then you get in there and it feels like a terrible experience. Because the question, instead of should I take this job, should be, what would I learn if I take this job? And what they might say is learning how to deal with difficult people, learning how to realize what's important in life. and because some of the experiences that we have that we would consider not good, they consider adventurous and full of growth potential and potential to learn. So I just want you to be aware that sometimes we get advice that seems like, well, that was not good advice. So we want to be careful how we phrase things. And really what we want to do is think about what it is about the job that we like. If it's a job, for example, what do we want to know? If we we could talk about if a relationship, should I get into a relationship with this particular person? You could say, what would I learn from getting into a relationship with this person? And if the answer is about betrayal, you can decide whether or not you want to learn about that. And the implication isn't necessarily that they'll betray you. Maybe you are the betrayer. We don't know. And there are some times when we get in there, we feel like we don't get an answer. And the reality is sometimes we don't, but we will get support always. Okay. So I just want you to think about how you phrase things. You can also go in and ask questions such as, you can ask for a healing. As simple as that. If you have someone in your life that's struggling, I do want to touch briefly on the ethics of not working on people unless you have their express permission to do so. So I really want you to think about, everyone has a right to refuse treatment. So even if you think you're doing good and you're helping and you're doing a healing, absolutely do not do that unless you have talked to them about it and they said, yes, that's okay. It's also a little more advanced. So this is an intro class. So I please don't jump in and do something like that right away. That's something to be learned. But sometimes when we journey, we have loved ones that we are worried about or that we care about or suddenly pop up. And we want to be careful not to interact with their energy. Okay, but not without permission. So another thing to do is, one of the things I talk about is going in with intention. And there are some practitioners who feel always go in with intention. It has to be very deliberate. That's the respectful way to do things. In my experience, going in without intention, and I'll clarify that a little bit more, has led to some really big growth for me that I'm not sure would have happened otherwise if I was in there always trying to control it. So I do teach going in without intention. But when we say that, we always kind of have something in the background that we want to accomplish when we do it. So it's not completely, without intention. But when I say that, sometimes I think, go in and just go for a walk and see what you see. But another thing you can give the opportunity is, so today, if you're struggling with what should I formulate to go in there and do and ask, a default can always be, is there something you feel I should know that I haven't thought to ask? And that is a really good default. So is there something you feel I should know that I haven't thought to ask? And it really opens it up, and you'll be surprised what you get. So today, if you're struggling, I know some folks really might have something that they want to work on, or they want a healing, and it's 100% okay to go in there if you have this a guide that you feel good about, that you've trusted, that you've met today, or you've met before and you're building on the relationship today. It's 100% okay to do that. It's 100% okay to just start formulating your own questions. You know, if you're in a tumultuous relationship with your partner or whatever, you can ask, how could I heal this relationship? You, again, don't work on the other person. You want to ask how you can help heal the relationship. What can you do? What is your what could your contribution be? Or maybe perhaps it's something to do with working on something that has to do with yourself. But that one in the background is always a good one. That what do you have to tell me that I haven't thought to ask that I should know? And it can be incredibly enlightening. So if you can't formulate a question on the fly, which I don't blame you, that's a good one. And then in the future, try just going for a walk. And one quick thing before we go in. The timing of these things can be very different. I'm in the process of working with a friend to get some good recordings of some drum tracks down for folks. And they're at odd times. There's 7-minute ones, there'll be a 20-minute one, a 30-minute, and a 60-minute. Sometimes you just need a few minutes. And you get an answer and you come out and you're done. And that's great. Sometimes you need a little bit longer. And I do think that, you know, I had said to someone that I was mentoring, I was talking about going in for I had been in for an hour, and I've journeyed for a lot longer than that. When we do Vision Quest, we journey for days. And so you're just journeying all day long. And the person said to me, oh, it never occurred to me to journey for that long. And I was sort of shocked. So I'm going to do recordings that are at least an hour long, so it occurs to people they can journey that long. I'm also going to mention that when I teach this in person, inevitably someone falls asleep and starts snoring in the middle of class. Falling asleep when you're journeying is totally common. It's a very common thing. I think as a society, we're all sleep deprived. And so I say, if you're journeying and you fall asleep, fantastic, get some rest, you know, enjoy it. But if you really want to get in there and do work and you think, I keep falling asleep, one good thing to do is if you are journeying, I know, Karen, you found that it's easier for you to journey sitting up. So you're going to be sitting up all the time. But one thing we tell people is if you're lying there and you're afraid you're going to fall asleep and you really want to do this journey, have your arm raised up while you're laying down. And what happens is when you fall asleep, your arm drops and it actually wakes you up. It takes you out of it. And so if I have folks falling asleep in class in the, you know, in the room, we say, put your arm up, because often people just start, you know, suddenly you have snoring and then everybody's like comes out of it because all they hear is snoring, and it's pretty funny. And I also will say, if you have a friend who's willing to do this kind of work with you, or you have an opportunity in your geographical area to go somewhere where they're journeying in person, journeying to live drumming is fantastic, and it feels amazing. The resonance that you feel in your body feels really good, and it can make for some even more intense journeys. But you don't need it. So continue to practice with the drum tracks. Stick with one for a while and just stick with the same thing over and over until you get really adept at moving in and out of this space. And like I said, then you can begin to experiment. But if you fall asleep, awesome. It's really good. Okay, we're going to do this one last journey. And I'm going to also throw the caveat, I'd love to hear how it all went. But I also understand that these can be very personal. And if you're not comfortable sharing, I totally understand. So don't feel pressure. However, I would love to hear about it, obviously. Okay, so we're going to do another journey here, and then we'll come back and check in. Okay. Hopefully we're all back. I am going to give you a couple minutes just to take some notes. And then we'll see if anyone is open to sharing. So one thing while folks finish up recording their journeys, and I've touched on it a little bit before, but when you're journeying, and especially if you journey for long stretches of time, your body may react to that. Some people feel really spacey at times. I know someone mentioned that their body was shaking a bit. For me, I get really dehydrated. It's a strange thing, but I am dying of thirst all the time, so I always have a lot of water nearby. There's definitely an exchange of energy when you do the work, and so it can affect you. And so you want to learn how it's affecting you. If you do get a little spacey, I had mentioned it before, but a little snack. So nothing puts you in your body more than having to digest something. And so that should do it. But this is another good reason why if you journey sitting up in a chair, doing it not in one that has wheels would be a good idea. Just in case. So you'll learn, how it affects you and what you need to do to be fully prepared for that. For me, like I said, I just need lots and lots of water. The other thing is that you'll also find times of day that maybe work better for you to journey. Or you could be one of those people where it's kind of all over the dial, or it just has to do with how you're feeling. Even me, it's been 23 years, and there are days where I'm like, oh, I'm too tired. So for me, if I'm really tired, to journey for myself is just something that doesn't work well. If I'm journeying for clients, for some reason that just works fine all the time, even if I am very tired. But although obviously I prefer to do it when I'm not tired. But for myself, for journeying for myself, it's a little more delicate for me. And that's, by all reports, is the same for a lot of people. So some people like to journey before they start their day, before the day has a chance to kind of get in there. And others find it more meditative and prefer to do it at the end of the day. When they know they don't really have a lot coming up, and maybe before bed or something like that. You'll find your time, or it could be all over the map. For me, it's kind of all over the map. And when I journey for myself, it's because instinctively I know I need to do it, or there's something I'm working through. And it's not always the first thing I think of that I need to do for myself. You would think it would be otherwise, but it's not. So try and remember that it's there for you if you've taken a short break, and breaks are fine. There's no punishment for that. When you're first starting out, though, I do recommend maybe putting a little routine on it, making a commitment to do it a little more often. Then once you're in the groove, then you may need to. And I often get asked, how often should I do it? You know, when you're first learning, you might go in a little more often, just because you're learning to get in and you're learning to build a relationship with your new guides. And so there's a lot to do and to talk about and to work through the language that you're going to be speaking, and how to understand what's being shown to you or conveyed to you. But then later you kind of want to ease off a bit, because you want to give yourself time to do something with the information that you've been given. So it really varies for folks. You can also ask your guides. When I was taught a particular thing by one of my teacher that came through to teach me a shamanic skill, they said, we want you to come in here once a week for 8 weeks. They were really specific, and I put it on my calendar. I said, all right, it's going to be every Tuesday from 6 to 8 for 8 weeks. And I literally put it on my calendar and scheduled it and went and did it like I was going to class for 8 weeks. So they can be very specific. So you can always ask, but also you can just go with your instinct, what you feel is right. But definitely give yourself time to use the information and to clarify the information that you've been given, and bring that into your daily life, rather than just going in every day or whatever and just filling journals, but not really doing a lot with the information. Excuse me. So I'm going to ask if anyone wants to share. Betsy, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, awesome.
I was feeling a little like less focused, maybe a little tired. So this one wasn't like as strong, and I wasn't as like, I don't know. I was like in and out a lot, but and maybe the question I asked wasn't right, but I'm trying to like start a new business. So I asked like, how can I advertise my business? Because I'm entirely virtual, and so I've just felt like I don't know how to do it. So I went like down really deep initially, and then I came out like through the dirt into wherever I was at, and like I immediately felt like a fairy feeling, like a fairy energy. But I didn't really see anything. Actually, the sense was that like I was the fairy, but I didn't really know what that meant. And then nothing was happening. So I climbed a tree, and then I was sitting on the top of the trees, like on the treetop, like kind of looking out at the sky, and I think it was like a sunset maybe, or a sunrise, I'm not sure. I think it was a sunset. And like nothing was happening, but then like a butterfly flew up and just like kind of there, and I think maybe it was like on me, but it was just kind of there. And then I felt like that fairy feeling again, and there were like lights, but there was like no clear image at. So I don't know. I kind of felt like the answer was like lightly, like don't push it, kind of. Which is hard for me because I want to like, push it. And then after that, I was just like kind of out of that scene, but there was just all these like feet like doing a dance on my body. Like with the drumming, it felt like a tap dance or something. Like for a second I saw like synchronized feet. And that was basically it.
Okay. Eric. Oh, you're muted.
There we go.
There.
Wanted to share partly because I have to just take off in a few minutes actually, but so thank you for doing this. I also found this one was a little more unfocused for me. And maybe it was just like the fatigue of doing a few of them in a row, or the fact that to get to this thing. But yeah, I went in with this kind of more of the question of just like, is there something that I feel that I should know that I hadn't really thought about asking? Yeah, I just was kind of like more disoriented and sleepy. But like my guide came back, this macaw came back and just like started doing this elaborate kind of dance to the drumming. Like very evocative and like in like crazy poses. And I just thought like, okay, I'm just gonna like watch this bird dance. And dance has been becoming like more of a thing that I've been doing recently. And I thought, okay, like there's something I'm just gonna take in from like watching this expression. Maybe this guide is teaching me about expression and that. Yeah, and then like I found myself actually like holding a book later, and you know, like asking the question again to the book, and like the pages were blank and text was appearing, but I couldn't really make it out. And then the macaw was like in a cage in this library, and so I, you know, opened the cage and we kind of flew back out the window back into the forest. And I don't know, yeah, that was kind of most of it.
Okay. So fatigue is a real thing when you're doing this. And this is a lot to in one session. When we work in person, sometimes we do all day workshops. So we take a big long lunch in the middle and we all kind of like get outside and get some air and things like that. And we're online, you know, so that can also create some, you know, fatigue. But you know, again, with the information that's coming through, sometimes we need to go back. And so sometimes even just reflecting on imagery, an example would be, I remember telling someone about a journey and I was like, and then it was really weird because this big, I looked like a cyclops. It was this giant, like third, like cyclops eye. And it was so strange. And my friend looked at me and went, well, that's your third eye. And I felt ridiculous because it was really obvious, but I was describing myself as a weird cyclops looking thing. And it seemed like something so obvious that sometimes, you know, I just didn't see it in the moment. But after reflection or after, you know, talking to someone about it, I was like, oh, right. But sometimes we need to just take a couple days and even just think about it, you know, and then we think, I think that thing is really important. That's why I keep thinking about this one image, even though I don't know what it is. We go back in and we ask. And because I'm going to call on the next two people, but I do want to also say before you go, Eric, because this is very critical. Sometimes these journeys are scary. They feel scary. I have had journeys, I mean, it's tapered off for me at this point, but where my heart was racing and I was sweating and it felt like a nightmare almost. I want to clarify that is normal. So don't, first of all, don't worry so much about that happening. It is very normal for some of the journeys to feel that way. Usually there's a lot of growth coming up and we're going to be addressing something that is something that a part of us is maybe not ready or is ready, but there's some adrenaline going as a result of what you feel this might bring up for you. Normal. The thing I want to say is, if you are not ready, you don't feel ready, or you're not comfortable with it, just open your eyes and come out of the journey. Nothing bad happens and you are safe always. But I just want to tell you that that's normal. And I am forever grateful that that's something I learned about through reading before it happened to me, because I don't know how I would have reacted if I thought, this is scary now. I don't think I should do this anymore. That is normal. And they're not all like that, but it is really important to know that sometimes that's the experience. And for me, I was always ready for these things, even though my heart was racing and I might have been sweating and like, oh my gosh, probably involved water and fish the teeth or something, you know, for me anyway, that's what it was. But then whatever needs to come out, whatever we need to face, whatever we need to deal with, often it comes along with those feelings sometimes. Not always. Sometimes it's just a complete joy, you know, and the feeling of love and support that you get is far outweighs any of those experiences, but they're all opportunities for growth. But you can always say, nope, not ready for that. You just open your eyes and come out. Okay. All right. Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks,
just
Eric.
brief-
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it felt like I kind of tried to ask, this felt less about the guides and more just like energy. And so it felt like just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna get a healing. So I was like, okay, can I have a healing? And it just was kind of a pleasant, like, it felt like, I mean, there's definitely been stuff I'm working out that I don't really know what it is, but it's been clear the last week or so that there's stuff. So it just felt like that was offered, and it was very pleasant, but I came out very spacey. So it's my experience.
All right. Thank you. I do want to touch on too, the seeing guides dancing, and also joining in dancing or chanting and vocalizations in there. There are some folks I trained with and also some colleagues of mine who are very much use vocalization and song and physical movement in their practice. And that can very much be a part of what it is that you do, and also what your guides do. Dancing in a journey is very natural and very common and very shamanic. And there are times when you will be called to join in. There'll be times when you are just a recipient. It can be a healing. It can be about raising your vibrations, and it can also just be expressive and have some meaning that is multi-layered for you and very personal. And then I know one time for me, I was called to join in, and I had extraction work done. Things that weren't part of my energy came out, and it was a healing and a clearing for me. So that is also something that you may experience in there. It may even be kind of likely. I think that's a really common thing for people to report. Patricia.
So I asked, well, let's see, a couple of years ago, very close to me passed away. And so I've asked him for his support of somebody that I've been particularly worried about. And so I asked him if there's anything else that I need to know from him, or anything I haven't asked or whatever. And I didn't get anything. I had a dream fairly recently, and he was in it. And I got a big message in the dream. And so I didn't get anything new from him. And so, but what I did get is I go for a walk, and I walk in the cemetery, and the cemetery he's actually buried in there. My parents are buried in there. My grandmother and aunt are all buried in there. And I used to think, oh, no one's in a cemetery anyway, but I walk there. It's beautiful. And I ask them for their support of this particular person that I worry about. And so I noticed in this journey that, yes, they're all there. They're all there with him. And then I kind of got back to the Lama. I didn't get back in the Lama in the journey. I got after we were talking, because that is a herd, that is a community. So it just felt very good. I mean, I feel kind of sad and tired, but it felt very good. So.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. You know, it's an interesting thing when we pass, because that veil between here and there is thinner than you think. And so when we do, we can talk out loud to our loved ones that have passed. And it's funny because I technically was raised Catholic, and I always say, well, there's one thing Catholics got right, and they light the candles for the loved ones that have passed, and they really do see that. And so you can ask for different rituals to honor those that have passed, and you can still have conversations with them. And I do know from a lot of the death work that I've done, which actually I was talking about that 8-week class that my my spirit guide insisted I take. I had a lot to do with death and the others, you know, crossing over and how to help folks do that, and what happens to you. There's also something called a death journey. I spontaneously erupted into a death journey before I knew that's something you could do, where you can see what will happen after you pass. And it's different for everyone. And I personally was shown choices. I had choices. That was news to me as someone who was raised Catholic and was told you're either going to go one place or the other. Which is not shamanically not what I have found true, or that you don't have any say. My experience is that you do, and I can say it is a joyous crossover. When you cross over, it is a warm, lovely embrace. Okay, does anyone have any other questions? And thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, everyone, thank you for sharing today. Patricia, you had something else?
Just one question. How long are these 13-minute drum cycles that we've been doing? And how do we, if we want to do journeys on our own, how do we get the drums?
Yes. Well, for all of you folks, I'll figure out a way to get maybe through Dropbox, where I can share this particular track that we've been using today. Pretty soon I'm going to have the full tracks. We had some recording snafus, so I have to go back in and re-record. But if you want something, I can also I'll email out a link to you of something else that you can get from another site. Absolutely, if you don't want to wait. And then I will hopefully in the next few weeks be launching the full set, but I can certainly send this one. These is 13 and change is this one that we've been in. When I teach in person with the drumming, I do 12 minutes every time, because it's the upper limit of what I'm able to journey, what I'm able to drum at one single time. I think I pushed it a little for this one. Anyway, so I'll absolutely do that. And I'll also send out an invitation to the journey group that's once a month if you want to join. And it's a really fun place to be. Everyone is really kind and warm. And of course, you know, they're friends of mine. And you can ask questions, you can share, and usually there's a focus for the night. So someone says, this is what we're going to be journeying on. Someone's usually me, but sometimes we have someone run it, and they give us the information we need to do the journey of the night. And it's a suggestion, so you can always journey on whatever you feel compelled to journey on. But it's a really great way to even just set up a routine time, and also to journey in a group when it may not always be possible in your geographic location. So, all right, anything else? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited for everything going forward for all of you.